So here we are in the kitchen construction zone, and we have a tiny problem. So we have this giant crack that goes all the way to the other side of the kitchen. Our kitchen floor is not flat, and we want to put a brand new layer of concrete on it. But to do that, we first need to fix this crack, or else we'll have the same problem with the new layer of concrete, namely cracking and moisture problems. And to do that, we're going to use a product made by Simpson called Crack-Pac Epoxy, link in the description, which is basically a fancy way of saying that it's very strong glue. This guy is so strong, when it cures, it'll be even stronger than the concrete itself. Also, it'll block out any moisture. Alright, let's take a look inside. The first thing you will notice here is a couple of tubes filled with hardener, which is one of two parts that you mix together to make the epoxy. So these two white tubs that my dad took out are also an epoxy, but we won't be using them today. Here is the second part of the epoxy that we will be using in these two long tubes with the orange caps on them. They're identical. I know it's a little, yeah. These nozzles and straws, the nozzles are probably about to come out, but the straws and the nozzles when they come out are also with the two white tubs when it comes to the epoxy. So this is essentially two kits. One kit to repair the crack, and the second optional kit if the crack is on a wall or a ceiling. What we will be using is the two tubes with the orange caps, the two nozzles with the hardener in it, and the latex gloves. You will also notice a tiny little black dot in the bag with the latex gloves, and we will be using that for when we mix to cap off as a temporary cap to cap off the tubes with the hardener in it when we mix it.
Soundstripe.
So before we can fix the crack, we have to prepare it. And a part of that is a little counterintuitive, but we have to open the crack. So when we apply the epoxy, it will go all the way in the crack because some parts of the crack are very narrow. So we have to widen it so it will actually go in. So what we are using here is what they call a crack chaser bit on an angle grinder. P.S. It was very loud, so wear ear protection. Link in the description. And don't forget your dust control. Here we're using an old beat up piece of vacuum duct tape to a shop vac. The reason we're using this is because the crack chaser bit will cut up the old vacuum extension. And my dad wants to tell you to be smarter than he's being and not have cords where you can trip on them. Next, we have to blow out all the debris so the epoxy will bond to the cement instead of the tiny dust particles. And we were using this blowing can, but it didn't work, so we had to use this kind of other blowing tool. Links are in the description. I don't know the exact names for them, but just blowing out all the dust so it will actually bond to the cement instead of the debris, like I said. Now comes the fun part, mixing the 2-part epoxy. What you do is you attach the nozzle to the hardener and then open the valve to let the hardener fall into the same container with the rest of the epoxy so it can mix. Once it's together again, you close the valve again and you can shake it. So you can shake the whole thing and mix it together. Here we take the top off and put on a temporary cap while we're mixing, and then you shake it for 2 minutes. At this point, I was just hoping my dad was going to make it without a heart attack.
Soundstripe. Soundstripe.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for. Put the epoxy in the crack. It looks like it's full, but once it settles, it will seep further into the crack. So once you finish putting the epoxy in the crack, you have to go back to the beginning and top it off. Repeat cycle for any additional cracks. This took a long time, so you gotta have a lot of patience for this. And here I am doing the same steps for the other cracks. This one wasn't connected to the rest, but we still had to take care of it because of the reasons that I stated earlier. Well, thanks for watching our first video. Bye, guys! And remember, guys, sometimes you gotta fix it for the biscuit.